What's going on YouTube? It's Teach back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my updated NFL power rankings post week 8, getting ready for week 9. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, hit that like button, it would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more football content like this in your life, hit that big red subscribe button. A couple of favors to ask y'all down in the comment section. One, give me your power rankings. Where do you think I'm wrong? Where do you think I'm right? Who's your favorite team? Where do you think they fit into this mix? But additionally, I want to apologize. No video this past Saturday. I'm hoping to have one this upcoming week. It's a very busy time for my daytime job. But I'm also going to Pittsburgh next Monday for the Steelers game. So we'll see if I have something this weekend. I apologize for nothing this past Saturday. And I do apologize in advance for potentially nothing this Saturday. But also, my last video, I had my face cam activated. Didn't want to do it today because I didn't want to get in the way of the pictures. But for future power rankings, let me know if you want to see my face cam or whatever down in the bottom right corner or anything there about. Love to have some video ideas as well. Just anything you have to say about my channel, I'd love to hear it. Anyways, let's jump into these power rankings. The bottom stays the same. You can shuffle it in just about any way. I thought about moving the Jags down, but I didn't think the Texans were, warranted of moving up just because they had a bunch of garbage time success against the Rams when they had, their second stringers out there. So the Lions, Texans, Jags kind of in just a tier of their own. Dolphins, Washington football team, both down a spot. These are just two teams that have just a lot to figure out, not only with the QB position, but defense is underperforming and some of the coaching that leads into it. Now, I don't think Brian Flores, he's on the hot seat in a lot of ways right now, but I don't necessarily think it's all his fault, right? Still a young head coach, things to learn. And some of the coordinators there underneath Brian Flores, especially the co-offensive coordinators, I think there's things that could be, tweaked and worked out there, but it's also tough. You don't want to give Tua or whoever the new quarterback is another offensive coordinating change. And then for Washington football team, I'm starting to question Jack Del Rio. I don't know, he's been around the league for such a long time. In a lot of ways, feels like that defense is just outdated for Washington. I think Jack Del Rio has proven to be a guy who can take a bad defense and make it solid, but solid to great clearly just hasn't been there. And maybe I'm just speculating too much here, but to me, both teams are struggling with some of their coordinators and the game plans, in specific with both sides of the ball. The Jets move up a couple spots. How about Mike White balling out? He's kind of like the talk of New York football, it feels like right now. And a great picture there on your screen. But he played really, really well. But a lot of their offensive success comes at the hand of Cincinnati's poor tackling, right? Lots of yards after catch, which is fine. You can have an offense that's engineered that tries to generate a whole lot of yak, right? That's what the Steelers attempt to do with that quick passing game. And even, the Green Bay Packers were forced to do something similar this past week with no Devontae Adams, no Allen Lazard, et cetera, et cetera. So it's fine to have that offense oriented. I'm just concerned that if the Bengals were just more sound tackling this past week, what does that in turn mean for the Jets offense? Probably just not coming away with a win. Also, you have that late helmet-to-helmet call. I mean, everybody's giving their 2 cents on it. It shouldn't be a foul if the offensive player initiates basically the crowning. So a tough blow there for Cincinnati. But big win for the Jets. You get your second on the year. Congratulations. You're up 2 spots. Falcons and Giants both down 2. Disappointing losses. And the Falcons, man, that just offense took a huge step back. Best wishes to Calvin Ridley as he continues to get right on the mental side and everything that he is trying to go on in his personal life. I credit the Atlanta Falcons as an organization for letting him do that away from the football field. Kyle Pitts, really quiet afternoon. That's disappointing for Atlanta. And Matt Ryan fielding that pressure. And I give credit to Phil Snow with Carolina. We'll talk about it in a second. They made Matt Ryan feel it, and he is very uncomfortable. And he is very visibly uncomfortable anytime he feels pressure. The Giants, they were right there with Kansas City, but at the same time, they also felt like an arm's distance away. I know it was close, but it never really felt like the Giants were ever in a position to be the better team in that game. At least from what I was watching, I never felt like the Giants are the better team tonight and they deserve to win. So just kind of a disappointing, mark on that end, because that game was close and it felt like they could steal one on the road and really surprise some people, but they did not. On to team number 24, that's the Chicago Bears, also down a spot. Justin Fields probably had his best game of his career so far. I mean, an insane broken play, scamper for a touchdown. That's what you have with Justin Fields if you're a Chicago fan. I mean, it's really exciting to see him do something like that. And no, hey, that's in the realm of possibilities. That's something we could, I don't want to say expect week in and week out, but he has that potential over a season. He's already a really polished deep ball passer. He is extremely accurate. Now we just need the pieces around him and the offense to come together. Just didn't happen against San Francisco, and ultimately it was that run defense that let him down. That's probably something you would say is one of Chicago's bigger strengths, right? Stopping the run, but it's just a different beast going against that Shanahan zone run and Elijah Mitchell. San Francisco has something with that kid. I mean, he is a perfect fit for that offense. Bears lose, they're down a spot. Eagles up 3 spots, and it's not just that they won. I mean, they trounced Detroit, which is disappointing for Lions fans, but I also don't want to get caught up too much in the Eagles blowing out Philadelphia or Detroit, I beg your pardon. But what was impressive about this is the commitment to run the football. Jalen Hurts, threw the ball 17 times? This was a complete departure from what Nick Sirianni has tried to do over the past couple of weeks, where it feels like he's just afraid to give Miles Sanders the football. Now, down Miles Sanders, he's feeding Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, he's using Jalen Hurts' legs. So that was an encouraging sign if you're an Eagles fan in my eyes. The defense played really good. And once Miles Sanders is back, and even if it's not, if they can continue to run the football well and then build the passing game off it, that's the next step. You didn't have to against the Lions because you're a better football team, but the next step is going to be, okay, how do we get Devonta Smith more than one catch, right? How do we include some of these pass catchers that have big play elements, and how do we build a passing game off that running attack that they have? So still things to work on for Philadelphia, but you're up 3 spots. Denver stays pat at 22. They barely eke one pass. Washington football team. Most of the time if you win, I move you up, but I mean, it felt like they wanted to give it away. Additionally, you can call it a net even. I'm not really accounting for the Von Miller trade when I did this power rankings, but you lost Von Miller, so you're definitely a worse team today than you were 2 days ago when you played the Washington football team, even though Von Miller didn't play. But you get my point. Regardless, Broncos, 22 feels about right. Colts down 3 spots, and this is tough, right? Because they were right there with Tennessee, and for so many different reasons, they should have won that game. A couple of weird plays from Carson Wentz, especially the pick in overtime. I mean, that just sealed it that they weren't going to be able to beat Tennessee. So kind of a disappointing turn there. And the Colts defense started out, I think, playing some pretty good football. And then as the game went on, you could just see them get worn down by Tennessee. But that's kind of the Titans' MO, so I can't really knock it against Matt Eberflus in that Colts defense all that much. But this Colts team potentially missed their biggest chance to insert themselves into the playoff discussion, not only for the division, but if they win this game, they're right there in the wild card mix. And I think the 7th spot in the AFC is already, kind of up for grabs for anybody. But that said, now the pathway to getting that 7th spot just got that much harder. Seattle stays at 20. They beat up on the Jags. Geno Smith looked okay. That's all I have to say about Seattle. It was a solid performance, but it was as expected as they beat up on Jacksonville. Carolina's up a couple spots. The defense got back to where it was at the beginning of the year. I don't think Sam Darnold was quite as good as he was in those first 3 weeks, but the defense was. They created a ton of pass rush. They made Matt Ryan uncomfortable, and he's just one of those quarterbacks, man. Once you make him not feel comfortable, at ease inside the pocket, they'll shrivel up, and the offense just does not take flight against that defense. So Carolina used their strength in the best way possible and got a big win to get back on track. They're right in that wild card mix in the NFC now at 4-4. So playoffs are possible. Also, Stephon Gilmore looked pretty good this week, which is a good sign for Carolina. Vikings down 2 spots. I just don't get it, man. It's amazing. You watch this Cowboys-Vikings game, and I was talking to my buddy who's a Vikings fan, and I was just saying, man, if only Kellen Moore could just be hired by y'all. If y'all move on from Mike Zimmer, y'all should just try to go out and get Kellen Moore, because what you see Dallas doing is what Minnesota should emulate, right? There was not a play down the stretch that you did not see Cooper Rush looking at CeeDee Lamb, looking for Amari Cooper deep down the field. They were trying to move the sticks. And then when I say deep, 10 plus yards down the field. They were constantly looking to move the sticks. And then on the other end, you see Minnesota and Kirk Cousins trying to find CJ Ham, dumping it off for Dalvin Cook, making him take unnecessary hits he shouldn't. Then you finally throw into Justin Jefferson. He looks like he might be hurt, and that was it. That it just stopped. So some of that aggressive, I don't even want to call it aggressive, it's just modern football thinking. Push the ball down the field, especially when you have Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. Dalvin Cook is a factor in the pass game, and you can use him in more creative stints. KJ Osborne's been a really nice wide receiver 3 for this team. They just weren't aggressive enough, and I don't know if it's because they want to keep the game tight for whatever reason, but they had chances, especially after that opening drive. That first script was fantastic. Could not have been better executed by Minnesota. But that was the only drive, I think, that they really looked like what they should be in this game. So a disappointing loss, especially at home and in prime time and against Cooper Rush. That's one you got to have if you're Minnesota. Cleveland's down 4 spots. They continue to fall. And I mean, it's kind of like what I talked about with the Giants. In that game, I don't necessarily think that Pittsburgh felt like the better team for a majority of the game. It always kind of felt like the Browns were knocking on the door and they were about to make it happen. But it just didn't. And that's super weird. And it's not great analysis. But for whatever reason, there was just a hump right in front of Cleveland. And they just could not get up and over it to get past Pittsburgh. And that's a disappointing loss at home on 10 days rest. I know Pittsburgh's coming off their bye. And there's stats to show that teams on the road coming off a bye perform pretty well. But you got to defend your home field. It's a tight AFC North. You need every division game you can. And you're at home. That's a disappointing one. And then Baker's taking hits, I think ones that he could have and should have avoided. And overall, the offense just didn't look great, which is, it's tough. Pittsburgh's got a good defense, one of the best in the league. But if you hold Pittsburgh to 15, and what felt like a lucky 15, we'll go ahead and talk about Pittsburgh here. The Steelers were very fortunate to get the 15 they got. Pat Freiermuth had making outstanding play. And some of it's because Chris Boswell gets hurt, right? So there are situations where they could have settled for 3, but they didn't have the choice to because it was Presley Harvin or you go for it. So the score could have been different in a lot of different ways for Pittsburgh, but that offense is just really, really rough, which is just a bad signal for Cleveland that, Pittsburgh outscored them. But the Steelers' bright side is that defense, man. They just continue to make big play after big play after big play. TJ Watt is everywhere. Got some good play from Joe Hayden going back to Cleveland. That was fun to see. So overall, the Steelers defense continues to be really impressive. And keep in mind, still no Stephon Tuitt. There's still room for that group to grow overall. But Pittsburgh, if they want to be serious contenders, they've got to be able to put up points. I mean, it's just, you cannot struggle that much to put up 15. Now, I do think Cleveland's defense is pretty good. It's tough to play in the dog pound. But outside of Najee Harris, that offense just was not good enough to win a high-level, very competitive game, other than, Cleveland being at the low end of their variance, right? That was one of the weaker performances we'll see from the Browns this season, and Pittsburgh did just enough to skirt past them. Cincinnati Bengals, you have this log of AFC North team. Bengals are down 6 spots. Man, you lose to the Jets. I don't care. The flag is unfortunate, but there's plenty before that could have kept the Bengals well out in front, right? They're up 11 into the fourth quarter, at least in the second half. Cincinnati should have won that game, but they just choked. I mean, I think that's kind of the mark of a young team. You'll see them lose games that they were out in front of and just don't know how to finish games, especially young teams that have a history of losing over the past decade or so. And I think that's safe to say that's been Cincinnati, right? There hasn't been that, stability. Like Pittsburgh finds ways to win games late. Baltimore does that. Cleveland's starting to get there, but Cincinnati has been, the run of the litter, and they're still trying to figure out how you win games that, your opponents find ways to make it close late or just avoid giving games away. And that's ultimately what it feels like Cincinnati did. They gave this one away to a not very good Jets team, even though it was fun to see Mike White play pretty well. I mean, the Jets team overall is just not that good. Chargers are also down 6 spots. And part of it's I didn't move them down a whole lot when they lost a couple weeks ago. Then they were on bye, and coming off the bye, I thought they were going to be really solid. They'd have a better game plan against Bill Belichick. But Patriots defense just continues to be the stymie of Justin Herbert. Now, both picks I don't think necessarily were his fault. Miscommunication, and Austin Eckler then drops one. The other way around chronologically, but this Chargers offense just isn't what it should be, right? Like, why are they not pushing the ball down the field? And it's easy for me to say as someone who's, recording this in his living room, right? Like, I have no NFL say, but it just feels like they aren't taking full advantage of everything they have. One with Justin Herbert's arm, Keenan Allen, then Mike Williams as pass catchers, Jared Cook's fine. Even Jalen Guyton's made some good plays this year. It just feels like there's been a lot left on the table there for Joe Lombardi, their offensive coordinator. But the defense still is okay, and I think they will be able to right the ship. I don't think this team is going to, stay around this 14 spot. I think ultimately as the year goes on, they'll be able to move their way up the power rankings. Patriots, who beat them, up 6 spots, 1 spot ahead. Bill Belichick continues to be really masterful working against young QBs. This time it was a lot of cover 3, a lot of soft coverage, keeping the ball in front of them. And then you have big-time playmakers make big-time reads on, Justin Herbert getting the pick 6 back the other way. And I don't know, the defense just looked really, really solid. And Mac Jones wasn't asked to do a whole lot. It didn't become a shootout, Herbert versus Jones. And that was the setting that New England needed it to be. So Patriots execute their game plan. They're up 6 spots. San Francisco, ran the ball really well against Chicago, get a win on the road. Those are never easy. And, man, I think this offense would look even better with Trey Lance, right? Couple rushing score for Jimmy Garoppolo. But a good get-right game for San Francisco after, tough losses the past couple of weeks, including one to the Colts through the atmospheric river. So if you're a San Francisco fan, you're getting back on track. And while I don't think the Bears are a great football team, it's a tough football team to beat. Any game's hard to win, and you do so on the road. And again, Elijah Mitchell looks like something in that offense. Like, he really does look very special. And he looks like a perfect fit for what Kyle Shanahan wants on a running back. So really positive things moving forward for the 49ers. Chiefs up 3 spots. Moving up 3 spots is probably a little generous because, I don't know, beating the Giants 20-17 at home, that feels a little underwhelming still. Now, I know primetime this year has created a whole lot of close and weird, wonky games, and the Giants overall are a scrappy team in a lot of ways, but they're also just not as good as Kansas City. And it felt like the Chiefs were just so strained on their star power, and then, some of that extra pressure leads to Mahomes' jump pass, then it goes through the hands of a couple players, popped up pick for the Giants. I mean, that opening pick for Kansas City was like their season summed up in a play. And then, Travis Kelce fumbles later because he's, trying to fight for the sticks. And he normally does that anyways. But sometimes it just feels like this team has so much pressure on its star players that it creates a stressful environment and leads to those turnovers and mishaps from those stars. So definitely some room still to go for Kansas City. I think the bright side of this is, while I don't think the Giants' offense is spectacular, he held the Giants to 17 points, right? And Chris Jones late in the game had a couple of game-sealing type of moments, right? He had 2 plays back-to-back where he got to Daniel Jones, and he basically brought an end to the Giants' final chance to get back, tie the game up, or potentially move ahead. So it was good to see Chris Jones have that star-level impact on a game. So that's a positive sign moving forward for Kansas City. Ravens are up 2 spots. They're in the top 10. That's about where they should be. They were on bye this week, so they get a little fortunate as people move down. They get to move up a couple spots in these power rankings. Also, real quick, we were just talking about the Chiefs. As I'm recording this, the Steelers have just traded Melvin Ingram to Kansas City, so that is a welcome sign for the Chiefs. And if you're a Chiefs fan, you're getting to hear me talk about it a little bit. He is a great pass rush creator. He is a good pass rusher on himself, but he just has a way to create better opportunities for those around him. And hopefully this allows you to move Chris Jones back inside where, again, he just had a huge game against the Giants late in that contest. Move him back inside where he is proven to be a game wrecker. Then that pass rush looks exponentially better for Kansas City, and you're hopefully getting right back on track and maybe even moving your way back into the Super Bowl conversation. We'll see once it's all on the field, but just want to talk about it as it happened as I was recording. Raiders are at 9. This is a good football team. On the right track, again, on bye. So the Ravens and the Raiders both fortunate that some of their teams shift down. Normally I don't move teams on the bye, but because of the movement, and I think highly of those teams, they're both up into the top 10. And now for the top 8, Tampa Bay. Man, we'll talk about the Saints with them too here. Saints at 7, Bucs at 8. Man, credit to Dennis Allen, one of the most underappreciated defensive coordinators, but for his ability to have an answer against Tom Brady alone is just marvelous. I mean, it's unbelievable. He seems to be the one guy who has an answer against Tampa Brady, right? And that with, some great star level play. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson makes a big play late in that contest. The pass rush was overall pretty solid. I mean, just New Orleans, that defense has that ability, right? It's not quite as dominant as it was week 1 against Green Bay. But that defense just knows how it can take over a game despite whoever is at quarterback for New Orleans, whether it's Trevor Siemian or Jameis Winston or potentially Taysom Hill when he's back from his concussion. That's a special defense, and it's got a really good play-calling defensive mind at the helm, kind of pulling the strings. So a lot of credit to New Orleans. If we're talking long-term, big picture, Tampa Bay is still, in my eyes, a better football team. But give credit to New Orleans. I mean, they took down the defending Super Bowl champs with Trevor Siemian for most of the game. For Tampa Bay, this was super weird. This has been a team that, had some untimely turnovers week 1 against Dallas, but they still got the job done, and they did a good job, and they got the win. This past week was the only other time that really comes to mind this season where they've struggled with turnovers. And, part of it was the defense was just, I don't want to say confusing Tom Brady, but for lack of a better term, confusing him, giving him different looks. He didn't know what to expect, didn't know what he was looking at. So definitely things to work out moving forward. This is also a game where I think Tampa Bay, if they have a fully healthy Rob Gronkowski, play like 5 plays, and an Antonio Brown, that weighs into the factor even more. it was interesting to watch that Marshawn Lattimore, Mike Evans, duel continue. Mike Evans gets the big play touchdown, but Lattimore continues to have a really solid season. So these are two good teams. And I mean, this is another signature win for New Orleans. They haven't really had one since week 1 against Green Bay, which looks a whole lot better now. But even that week 1, you can count that as a fluke, right? Weird things happen at the beginning of the season. But this was the real signature win for the Saints. And this is what, to me, solidifies them in that playoff conversation. And you probably won't see me drop them out of the top, 12 now in these power rankings, because clearly they've proven to be, a top 10 to 12 level football team. So disappointing loss for the Bucs, but a big win for the Saints in a very interesting NFC South now. Titans up a spot. It was interesting. It was close, but they found a way to win one on the road against a division rival. Those are not easy. The unfortunate news coming out of that is Derrick Henry out for the year. So they are up a spot based off of the win. No Derrick Henry. We'll see what that offense looks like. But next week they might be down a lot because Derrick Henry's been backpacking. And then, Tannehill's played well building off of that. And the play action pass game has been solid. But with no Derrick Henry, especially against the Chiefs, you saw it where Henry didn't have a huge game, but because of how much respect he garners and how much focus that he draws from the opposing defense, everything else just kind of becomes open. Without Henry out there, what does that look like? So we'll see. We'll see if Adrian Peterson has any tread left on those tires as well. Cardinals are down 4 spots. So the top 2 teams in last week's power rankings both fall. Cardinals are at 5. They had a chance to win it late, right? I'm not even going to talk about the A.J. Green debacle. He's not looking for the ball. But even mistakes prior to that were kind of weird. And overall, this just probably wasn't a game that they wanted it to become, right? I think they almost had a better shot. This is going to sound weird. A better shot at Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard are playing, because if it became this shootout between quarterbacks and spreading it out and airing it out, I feel like, that is more of the Cardinals' speed. But once it became this, Green Bay is going to chew the clock. They're going to feed A.J. Dillon. They're going to get the ball to Aaron Jones a ton. They're going to throw it short. They're going to work the yak game, and they're just going to bleed the clock out and try to keep it low scoring. That just doesn't work for how the Cardinals operate, right? They're an up-tempo offense, so then when the game slows to a halt, that just naturally works against it. And additionally, the Cardinals' run defense, especially no J.J. Watt, just isn't great. Overall, it's fine. Green Bay was just focused on running the ball, and they got some big runs. But I don't think that's going to be something that in any other matchup, and especially if they were to play Green Bay in the playoffs, but Green Bay were healthy, I don't think that would be something that would become that huge of a factor. It'd be an element of it, of course, especially now that these two teams have played. Green Bay would try to emulate that again in the postseason if these two teams match up. But this Thursday night matchup was just altered so much by no Devontae Adams, no Allen Lazard, and it didn't really break in the favor of Arizona, at least in my eyes, for that defense. Cowboys are up 2 spots at number 4. You win a game in prime time on the road with Cooper Rush. Yeah, you're definitely moving up a couple spots. And Dallas proved to me that they're legit, right? And the offense in specific, Kellen Moore just gets it from a play calling standpoint. I don't care if it's Cooper Rush, I don't care if it's Trevor Siemian, or if it's Dak Prescott, Jameis Winston, whoever. Get the ball out, push the ball down the field. And the reason I mention those names is the starter versus backup battle. Sometimes you'll see teams, once they get backup quarterbacks, they want to play it uber conservative. Kellen Moore was not afraid to put the ball in the hands of Cooper Rush, especially late in the game, in a big situation, big moment, and work it to CeeDee Lamb, work it to Amari Cooper, gets the game-winning touchdown. That's what teams should be trying to look for. And again, if Mike Zimmer gets fired from Minnesota, if there is a way that Kellen Moore could end up with the Vikings and he feels comfortable both being the head coach and the OC play caller, that would be the best case scenario moving forward, at least as it stands right now in my eyes, for the Minnesota Vikings. But really impressed by Dallas. The defense also played pretty well. And really they got hurt so much by flags late and a couple of calls that should not have been flags at all. So Cowboys found a way to stay resilient and pick up a big road win. Rams dominate Houston. They also pick up Von Miller this week, so they're up a spot and feeling pretty good about adding, one of the best defensive players of the last decade. Now Von Miller's not quite the same guy as he once was, but you work alongside Aaron Donald, you might see a career renaissance for Von Miller. So that defense just got that much better. They pummeled Houston. There's not much more to say to that. And they feel like they're now, with Arizona and Tampa Bay losing and shifting out of the top, 4, these feel like the top 3 teams. Rams at 3, Bills at 2, up a spot. Took a little while, but they were able to edge it out over Miami, a team that they are just better than overall. And then the Packers come in at number 1. Look, you take down the number 1 team and you do it in something that's not your style. As much as I say I don't think that play style benefited the Arizona defense and ultimately hurt them. Green Bay, completely different offensive game plan, and you have to give them credit, right? They found a way to do it differently. They toted it with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, and it proved to be really, really effective. And Aaron Rodgers, didn't have his guys, but he still made some big throws and big moments. And even with, new players coming in and out, and, you have that late delay a game because nobody knows where they're supposed to be, and there's no timeouts available for Green Bay. So lots of weird things working against the Packers, but they found a way to pick up a road win, and that is just the mark of a good team. So Green Bay, as of right now, my number one team in these power rankings. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Who do I have too high? Who do I have too low? Who's your favorite team? Where do you think they should be in the mix? Also, all those notes about my videos, my channel overall. I'd love to have some feedback from you. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want more sports content like this, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, we are signing off.